All right, so we're live. Welcome everybody who's hopping on here. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is James Bowerman. I'm a realtor with the Real Creative Group of Douglas Realty in Pasadena, Maryland. And today I am with Christie Bell with OPO Interiors. And we're going to be talking about how you can keep your sanity here, organizing. We're going to talk about your home space, decluttering, and then setting up a home office as well. So Christie, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself, tell a little bit about, who you are and your background and what we're going to be doing today.
Sure. So I'm Christie Bell, owner of OPO Interiors. We got started back in 2016 and we just celebrated 3 years on April 3rd. I got started doing primarily just organizing. And since then, we've expanded over to doing the decorating and styling side of the interiors. So I'm really excited to present today. I think that hopefully there's some tips that maybe you didn't know about or might encourage you to go get some of your cabinets and storage areas cleaned up and organized. And I'm just really looking forward. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we obviously, I know you through, we actually met through our BNI networking group. And we got connected and just the timing was right. I was looking for someone to help when I go through and list a property for sale. The very first thing is preparing the home. What do we do to get the house ready to put on the market? So I've been working with Christie now for a few months. And been helping me out tremendously, meeting with my clients and helping really get that home looking top notch. So when we do go active, it really stands out and shines. So let's talk a little bit about the first topic. And actually, let me touch on one thing, because I know you kind of surprised me today and said that you're going to be giving away a digital work session to somebody who's watching. Specifically, I want you to make a comment down below. The digital work session involves, and I'll let you explain this a little bit later on, but there's a questionnaire, measuring guide. We're talking about organizing or really creating a space that's really going to stand out and be something you can be proud of. And it also includes the virtual consultation. So we're going to be giving that away. I encourage you to leave a comment below if you're interested in that. We would love to see a space in your home that you're having a challenge with. So specifically today, we're talking about a home office. So if you've got, the home office that you have and you're not really happy with it, or you think you're happy with it, but you would like somebody of Christie's professionalism to take a look and give you some advice on what you could do with that space. Or if now you got the kids at home and you're homeschooling them and struggling with figuring out how to get them into a workspace, take a picture of that, post it in the comments, let us know, what your challenges are, and we'll be giving away that free consultation. So jumping into it, Christie, let's talk about decluttering. So everyone's at home, and we've got this time on our hands. So how can we go about, decluttering our space at home?
Right. I know I've been doing a lot of decluttering myself. And then spring's right here, right? So we always naturally have that feeling of just, I need to clean out and organize. Can you hear that now?
A little bit.
Let me just, there's some work happening outside. Let me shift gears a little bit. So
it was only for a second though. I didn't hear it.
I'm going to get one. So I'm going to start off with talking about organizing the garage, because it's a beautiful day now. It was a little rainy this morning, but now it's starting to get sunny and beautiful out. And I know yesterday was gorgeous. So I'm going to start with garages just because it's outdoor space. So when you're organizing the garage, you need to give yourself at least a day at the very least. Garages tend to gather so much extra stuff. And so the way that I usually do it when I'm working with a client is we clear out everything. So we pull everything out, and while we're pulling it out, we're categorizing it. So putting garden tools together, putting the kids' toys together, things of that nature. So, so you're going to want to organize them in categories, but also have a keep, donate, and trash pile. So if you need to, you can even print out or make a label and have those spread out over the driveway. And then you're just kind of gathering those items up. Within that keep pile, as I said, you're going to want to subcategorize those items. It's going to make it easier when you're putting them back. And then when you're categorizing them, I think something that I notice a lot of my clients don't really think through is, will I be able to find it 6 months or a year from now? When you're putting things back, you really want to come up with ideas of just very intuitive places that you're going to be placing these items. So let's say it's I don't know, I'm having trouble thinking of an example of one of these items, something obscure. Maybe it's like a garden, a garden gnome or something. Where's that garden gnome? Is it with with the gardening supplies, or is it over with the shovels? Really thinking through where your mind's going to be at 6 months or a year from now, because hopefully you're not having to do this every single year. Also, set up a junk removal company to come out and take these belongings. I have a couple good companies that I work with, and they will take the junk and the donations. Not all of the companies will do that, but it's great to just have everything set up and get it out as quickly as possible. To shift gears a little bit, we'll go inside and we'll talk about the pantry. Again, pull everything out. Every time I organize, I'm going to make you pull everything out. And it's a little daunting, but that's the only way you can really see what everything is, or what you have in those storage areas. I hear often, oh yeah, no, I know what's in there. I'm good. I want to keep all of that. And I say, okay, well, let's just pull it out so we can clean up the cabinet. Sure enough, half of the stuff goes to the trash. So we're going to pull everything out. This also gives you the opportunity to deep clean, especially when it's a pantry or a kitchen, something that's going to be getting a lot of food debris. So you can really clean off the counters and wipe everything down. You'll really be surprised at how dirty those rags are when you're wiping off the pantry cabinets. And then you're going to want to just disinfect everything. It's perfect for right now with the corona. You want to just clean everything and just, get it up to date. Throw out your expired items. Something that I notice with so many of my clients is spices. For some reason, people do not want to throw away their spices that are expired. I guess because they're a little pricier. But it's not, your foods aren't going to taste as good. They're going to be weak. The spices are not going to do what they're intended to do. So make sure you're clearing out the spices, the canned goods. And then while you're at it, go through your fridge and do the same thing. Wipe everything down. Again, categorizing those items, sort them out. I usually like to use the kitchen island or the pull out a card table and sort these items. So baking goods together, the canned goods together. If you tend to make certain meals often, like let's say Mexican food, keep all of those canned items together. Versus like maybe the tomato goods, those can be separated out, because then you're going to know exactly what you need before you go shopping. You can just, exactly where to look to say, do I have the tomato paste? And when you are ready to put those items back, usually I do this in two separate days. I will go ahead and measure out all of the cabinets and then measure the sorted categories. So on that table, let's say this amount is the baked goods. I measure that amount. And so I know exactly what type of bin, what size bin I need for those items to fit into the pantry properly. Oftentimes I see people buying those ready-made, that brand OXO. They're the storage, like the clear with the white top. They're great containers, but a lot of times I see people buying those ready-made where it's like 5 different containers of different sizes, and they're all excited to organize, and then come to find out it just doesn't work for their belongings. So I always say measure those items, temporarily put those items into the pantry where you're thinking that they should go. And then when the organizing products come in, then you can take them back out, put them in the bin, and then just stick them back inside, and it's all ready to go. So,
so good advice. Got a couple people saying this is great info. I need this info in my life. So
great
stuff.
And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Should I go to under the sink?
Yeah, let's go under the sink.
Okay. I just did under the sink in my kitchen, and I hadn't done it in like a year and a half, and it was pretty grimy in there. So I took everything out again, wiped it clean. It's weird the type of things that you acquire under the kitchen sink. It's like, I guess just you kind of shove things in there. You don't know where it goes, so you just kind of put it in there. So pulling everything out, just really, again, sorting them, categorizing them. And one thing that I love to put under a kitchen or any sinks, but a kitchen sink, is those organizers that raise up. So a cabinet organizer that kind of raises up as a shelf, because then you can put the smaller items like sponges and smaller soaps underneath, and then you can put all of your spray bottles on top, and it usually is just enough room where you can have 2 levels just to maximize that space.
Yeah, it's a good tip. I feel most of that stuff is, like you said, kind of out of sight, out of mind. You just keep cramming it in there.
Right. I know for me, I don't have a lot of space. I rent. I have a smaller kitchen, so I'm always looking for ways to really extend the space that I have. Another thing that you can do is they have these organizers that kind of hang on the cabinet door. And it's about that much space where you can put a couple spray bottles into that as well. So you can use the doors as space to organize as well. And then another thing, back to the pantry or even dishes, they have these from Container Store. They have these things that it's like a basket for underneath the shelf. So it kind of clips on, not even clips, it just like sits on the shelf. And then underneath there's this storage area. So I put my small plates in there. In my pantry, I have one where I put my onions because they're supposed to be well circulated. And usually these baskets are, they have breathing room. Okay. So those are also, Container Store is amazing. They have all sorts of really great organizing products. Another thing is I love a Lazy Susan, but only when you use it correctly. I don't like the double ones because you lose the space in the middle of the bottom. So usually I just do a larger Lazy Susan for oils and vinegars, things like that. And that's a really good use of space when you have that awkward corner cabinet. So those are great. And you can get all of that, at Container Store, Target, any of those kind of stores. But again, please measure before you buy all of these items. I see so many times people have these great intentions. They go and buy organizing products. They think that they're doing the right thing. And then it just ends up becoming more clutter in the long run.
All right, good stuff. Now, the next topic we want to talk about is the home office, which I'm a little more excited about. Myself personally, I have, home office set up that, it kind of is what it is. Using it, I've technically worked from home for a while now, so it was kind of easy to adapt into this. But I know that a lot of people who have been going to the office are now forced to come home and they're trying to make do with, if they have an office, great. If they don't, setting that up. I've seen, people, whether they're in their bedroom or they're in their closets, which I think we're going to talk about. Literally people sitting on the floor of their closet. I think there's a lot of challenges out there. So tell us a little bit about, how we can kind of overcome this and what's going to be a way to maybe even optimize the space so that we can still remain, effective. Working from home, a lot of distractions because everyone's home. Let's talk about this.
Right. So I've been on so many Zooms where people are just so stressed out right now because they're all working from home. A lot of people weren't originally working from home, so they're trying to do these makeshift offices. Their kids are coming in and thinking that they can just have conversations while they're on a Zoom meeting so I think it's really important to have that designated space. Even if that just means, let's say you have a sectional and that one section of the sectional that nobody really sits on, maybe that's your workspace. But I think it's important to dedicate some particular area to that workspace, at least for this quarantine time. I think that blending the two can be, it can get you off task, and it can kind of just blur the lines on work and just being off. So I think having that designated space, having it set up so you have everything right at your fingertips. So let's say it is just a sectional and you're over there, you're on that sectional area, you set up a little tray that has, some pens, some paper, a notepad, maybe your phone chargers over there, and everything's right in that area. I think it's really important to just have everything together. If let's say you have a family and the sectional, people are on watching TV, they're hanging out in the living room, it just doesn't work. Maybe you have a spare closet, like you were mentioning before. A closet can be, maybe it's time to clean out that closet, first of all, declutter and get rid of some items. And then maybe you have a blank closet now. Well, you can easily set up an office in the closet. So you can, if you're handy, you can install a piece of wood into the shelf as a desktop. You can even do some shelving above that. You could paint the walls just to make it beautiful and inspiring. You can add some artwork into the closet. And then again, just having all of those items with you, having that, your pens, your paper, and your cell phone charger, your laptop, and just making it a dedicated space, I think overall is the most important. And I think that there's so many ways that you can really incorporate makeshift areas if you're not planning on staying within your home as an office. But I also have heard so many people making the transition of this is the new norm and they're going to be working from home now. This is now going to become a remote situation. In those cases, it's a little bit more in depth. I think you really should have that dedicated space on another level, having that room to be your office. If you have the luxury of having an open space, maybe it's a guest room that you don't really use that often, and you can kind of shift gears on that guest room to make it an office now. What I would do there is,
Uh-oh. Did we lose you? Oh, you're back. I don't hear you though. I need some sound.
can you hear me now?
There we go. All right, you're back. That was only for a second.
I don't know where I went. So what did you hear? Did you hear everything and just cut off for a second?
Yeah, just cut off. We're talking about how, if this is the new normal, then it's even more critical to be having these
Right.
set up and to keep them segregated. And I was going to touch on that too, because I've experienced that several times, especially with being in real estate, almost being on call, that people expect you to be accessible almost all the time. And it can be very difficult when, you're with family or when you're in the office to have that set space and say, okay, when I go into this space or this room or this part of the house, like that is when I'm working. And then
Right.
being disciplined enough to say, okay, when I'm with the family, I'm not. And one of my colleagues, he always says, where you are, there you are, which is, I think, a tie into this whole, a lot of people say work-life balance, right? And it's difficult, if not impossible, to have a balance, but the whole idea of where you are, there you are is not having necessarily a balance, but just being committed to being in the present on
Right.
where you are, not picking up the phone when you're with your kids or when you're in the office having distractions come in. So anyway, that was my sidebar, but
I love that. Where you are, there you are. That's a good one. I think to back up from moving into actually having the luxury of having a space to change into an office, I do want to go back for a second to mention, if you don't have a space to dedicate as an office space, something that you can purchase for it's fairly inexpensive. It's about, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks, is one of those screens, you know, the wall screens that kind of open up. They fold up. Do you know what I'm talking about?
a wall screen, like
So it folds up. You'll see it a lot in Asian cultures, but
okay.
you can fold up this
I
screen.
got you. Yep.
Yes.
Like a divider.
Yeah. And so you could put that up, and that creates this visual border of, this is my office space and I need to have a little bit. And it also cuts down on the noise just a tiny bit. And it just really gives you that visual of, okay, now I'm at work. That's a great alternative.
Yeah.
So let's go back to, if you do have the luxury of having a space that you can change into an office, some things that you want to think of if you're going to be purchasing a desk or purchasing different items is, you're going to want to first, you're going to want to figure out what is going in this office. Is it just an office, or is it also going to be maybe you do some sewing or a craft or something like that in there? Maybe it's a workspace in multiple facets. Maybe it's a hobby and for work. So you figure out what is going to be the use of the room. Next, you're going to want to draw out a floor plan. So to do that, you're just going to do some rough measurements. You're going to draw everything out. You're going to want to keep in mind the outlets, where the outlets are. You're going to want to keep in mind where the air vents are, because a lot of times people don't think of that. And then next thing you know, you're heating up a piece of furniture instead of your room. And that's not very cost efficient. So keeping that in mind when you're drawing things out, measuring those spaces. Then when you're actually looking at the pieces of furniture, putting them into that space, you can draw them into the space. If you're, online and you see a desk that you like, you can find those measurements and then put it into this space. I think that that's key. I think a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh, this is beautiful, it's going to go in my space so well. And then they get it and it's either entirely too big or small for their space. So it's very important to really do that prep work.
Yeah, in the carpentry trade, they always say measure twice, cut once, right? So
Exactly. Also, come up with a budget before you look at any furniture, because if you start looking, you might start spending some money that you don't have, because you might fall in love with this gorgeous, let's say the desk again, you might fall in love with this gorgeous desk and it's $200 more than you thought you were going to spend. But since you didn't think about that beforehand and really set some guidelines for yourself, you just end up making this impulse buy. So really coming up with a budget overall, because if you have a $2,000 budget, let's say, and you need to get 8 different things, you can figure out which one of those things you want to spend more money on. So definitely coming up with a budget first is great. And then just figuring out what the best layout of the space is. That's the fun part for me, at least. You get to be really creative. Think about the lighting in the room. Where are you going to be most inspired? Add some artwork into the space and some photographs. You want your space to be a reflection of what you want to produce. Just like they say with a clean desk is a clean mind. That goes for the office as well. if you have an inspiring space, think about what you can produce when you're in that space that you feel ready to go and ready to produce. So I think just do everything you can. I mean, just painting a wall, that's not expensive, but it's going to make such a difference. So,
Yeah. I think that's huge. I mean, being someone who's worked from home over the past couple of years, I've actually moved around a couple of times. Right now, I think I can actually touch both walls. I'm kind of in this alcove, and I've got this little, like, I don't know, $60 stand desk from, I don't know, Walmart or something that I got mainly because of the idea of like standing. When you're standing, like you're in more of a, they call a power position. And, you know, if I'm going to be in an office, like it just all these little things. And specifically you mentioned, you know, a place where you can be productive. Like when the office gets too cluttered, or like we're starting to put storage stuff in here because it's kind of a multi-use space, it gets on your mind. Like, I don't even want to be in there. And then next thing you know, I'm upstairs on the couch and I'm like sitting down. So it does have this mental effect of like creating this great space. Even like we have this little window over there, I can kind of like move to see it, to get that natural light, to not feel like I'm in a cave.
Right.
Even I adjusted the lights that were in the room to more of instead of the yellow, more of the sunlight.
Yes.
So it doesn't feel, because I'm in kind of a basement corner, which can get depressing if if you don't set it up right. So
it can. 100%. And lighting is key. If you have some lamps around the house, get creative with it. Just add some things in. You can always take them out. Just change some things around and really get inspired by that space. Another thing is, you might not have, I know things are tight right now, budget wise. Some people aren't sure when they're going to get paid next. So get creative on what you have around the house that you might be able to use. Right now in my office, which I'd love to show you if there wasn't work happening outside of the window, I used a media console table behind my desk for my printer. It pops open, the front shelf looks like a drawer, but it really just pops open. So I put my printer in there just to hide it away, because I didn't want it out. I didn't want electronics out. I wanted my space to be clean and just really just encourage creativity, and electronics kind of just throw it off for me. So I hid away that printer. That's console stores so many different supplies. It's amazing how much it really is a great storage piece. Again, I rent. I don't have the chance to do built-ins. I don't really, have a ton of storage space. So I created it with the pieces that I was using. So get creative. I mean, you might have something in your house that you were going to get rid of, or that maybe it's not really serving its purpose, or maybe it's not full. I have some pieces that they had storage areas to put things in, and then maybe I just didn't utilize that. So just really get creative with that and keep an eye out on the different pieces in your home.
All right, good stuff. I do want to say this again, that Christie is going to be giving away a free digital work session. So if anybody who's watching this can make a comment that would be interested in that, take a picture of your space. I see some people mentioning their spaces, desktops. You can't see the actual desk. If you're not too embarrassed, take a picture, post that below, and you can have a chance to get this free consultation, basically, with Christie, to help figure out how to optimize that space. Or if it's not an office, another part of your room. Christie, you want to touch on that? Just kind of what would be involved in that?
Yeah. So with the digital work session, what that's going to be is, depending on if you want design help or organizing help, what we'll do is I'll send you out a questionnaire. You'll answer those questions. If it's a design project, then you'll also get a measuring guide. So you can do those measurements that I was just talking about before, and you'll send those over to me and I'll preview them, and then we'll do a virtual session. So you can show me the space, you can show me your style. Maybe you love one of your rooms and you want to kind of use that as an inspiration. And then we'll go from there and figure out what pieces you need and just kind of go through it. You'll have somebody to talk to. We can talk it out. We can really create a super inspiring space, whether that's an office, a bedroom, you name it. With the organizing, if you just are feeling very overwhelmed with a certain project, I'm there to help you. We can figure out the scope of work, figure out how to break down those goals, the large goal into to make it more, doable. So that's going to be the digital work session. And I really hope that somebody takes advantage of that, because I would love to help somebody out with, create and inspire.
Excellent. All right. I'm not sure if anyone else has seen it. It looks like your screen froze. I can still hear you if you're still there. So I don't know if the internet's a little slow right this second, but if you can still hear me, can you say something? All right. Well, on that note, maybe Christie can jump back on here before we sign off. But I want to thank everybody for watching, for joining us today. Hopefully you found this information very useful. You can find Christie at OPO Interiors. And there should be a link in the description up here at opointeriors.com. You can find her on Facebook. She's on Instagram. Again, she's going to be giving away the free digital work session for you guys. So make sure you make some comments. Please, if you would, share this video. And again, thank you for watching again so much. My name is James Bowerman with the Real Creative Group of Douglas Realty. Wish you all to be healthy, take care, be well, and we'll see you again soon.